So the time is 6 o'clock here in the Rocky Mountains, and call to order the City of Glenwood Springs Planning and Zoning meeting. This is our regular meeting for October 24th, 2023. It is a hybrid meeting available on Zoom and also here in the council chambers. The passcode for the Zoom is 177366. Telephone number 719-359-4580. And please call the roll.
Welcome, Commissioner Davey, Commissioner Sims, Commissioner Sipperly, Commissioner Shaver, Commissioner Waller,
Here.
Commissioner White, Commissioner Connerton.
Okay. We have no minutes to receive, so are there any conflicts of interest to be expressed?
Yes, I will be recusing myself.
And I,
Fred.
could be. Mic on.
Yeah. I will need to recuse myself from the garage variance as I received a public notice that property is across the alley from myself. And also would like to declare that my place of employment where I'm a contract employee did get noticed about the airport road project, but I see that I would have no problem being unbiased in any decisions regarding that property. So I do not intend to recuse from the airport road conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Carolyn.
Commissioner Sipperly looked at me, so I concur in that analysis.
You think I'm all right then?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Item 5, comments from citizens appearing for items that are not on the agenda. Please state your name for the record and please hold your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Okay, my name is David Howder. I live in Glenwood Springs. I forgot my glasses, so I hope these work. I want to talk about the confluence and request that you bring it back to the P and Z for further review. There are several issues that need to be vetted by you as the deciding body. Since your approval of June 27th, the project has been named the confluence, which is also a metaphor as to whether or not we are fully committed to preserving it as the heart and lungs of Glenwood Springs. You may think I'm exaggerating, but when you look at this project, taking away public space to develop high density housing 5 foot from the property line with inadequate parking, you must wonder what the commitment to maintaining the quality of life in Glenwood Springs is. There are several bases for your approval that have changed. The first is the property lines defining the project are not established. There is no approved site plan that I know of, that I have seen, or that we have seen, I believe, in the public. The land use application refers to the habitat parcel as 0.48 acres. The size to be defined by the property line adjustments at the north edge of the existing sidewalk. It further stated that a minor subdivision will be required to separate the habitat parcel from the right-of-way property to ensure that the existing right-of-way for transportation remains intact. Today, the public, we do not know where these property lines are. It was not presented to you clearly at your last P and Z meeting, and then therefore, I don't believe it's an approved project yet. Staff designated the front yard to face Cowden Drive. This is a discretionary decision, and it's a biased decision made to maximize the density over other factors. This resulted in applying only a 5 foot setback from the arterial street. The length from the arterial street 3 times the length of Cowden, that is 8th Street. Cowden Drive is a local street with an alley-like access to the parking lot next to the trash collection area. It is not the front yard. The front yard setback and moving the buildings farther away from the arterial street should be applied to the same should be applied to the southern property boundary at the edge of the existing bike ped path next to the dominant street that would have no driveways intersecting, exiting or entering those driveways. This is the logical front yard facing the site, and a 15-foot setback would provide space for trees and landscaping between the curb and the street and the housing. This is a relatively small project with an extremely important role to play in reference to the future planning of the confluence area. And it is a precedent-setting opportunity to show the commitment we have to balancing the complexities of development with the ecosystem of the
David,
confluence area.
I'll
I
ask you
know
to,
I'm out of time.
yes, sir.
It's an important project. Needs to be successful if you want to have successful projects in the future. What I'm really asking is a very simple request. Bring this back to P and Z for public review. That's me.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to tell council.
Please,
that-
please state your name for the
I'm
record.
sorry, my name is Gary Vick. And I'm not going to tell council that you get way better food than they do. That stuff smells terrific. I'm going to ask you a real simple question tonight, I have a simple request. I'm asking that you instruct staff to provide you with the emails and materials which we forwarded to the city on October 9th for inclusion in tonight's packet. Those materials have been withheld from you. I'm asking that you read the materials and vote to see if the topics discussed warrant further review by the commission, and those materials relate to the habitat project at 8th and Midland. Now, I can't go all through the materials in only 3 minutes, but there were two major flaws that the materials discussed in the previous approval that you made. First of all, I don't believe you are aware that the assignment of the address and the assignment of the front of the property were made in a manner which was inconsistent with historical practice. That decision defines all setbacks on all sides of the property. The section of the code that allows for flexibility, 70-45-80, neither allows nor contemplates this type of flexibility in the application of addresses. It doesn't even cover addresses and the resulting impact on setbacks. Secondly, based on the materials in your approval package, it's not clear to me, and I wonder if it's clear to you, what property boundaries you actually approved. What in the world am I talking about? The property that was to be deeded to Habitat may include lands that are currently occupied by the public sidewalk along 8th Avenue and part of 8th Street itself. You were shown maps to that effect, but in the body of one of the attachments, a minor subdivision was discussed, which would allow the city to logically keep the lands comprising the sidewalk and the street, but no maps were in your package to show this subdivision, and no resulting boundary lines were shown in your approval packet. So I ask you this, do you know anything about this minor subdivision? Have you heard of it before? What boundary did you approve? The one with or without the minor subdivision that was not shown? When staff last spoke to us several weeks ago, post-approval, we were told that the boundary line, quote, "The boundary line has not yet been established and movement is being considered." What? Since that time, we've been stonewalled on this topic. Would you like to know what you approved and what the staff is doing with your approval? I certainly. The purpose of the withheld materials is to allow you to make a decision on whether or not to call up this topic for further review. I just want you to see the materials. We were told that the 7-day appeal period under section, whatever that section is, 70, 60, 70, had expired, although, without a clear understanding of what you approved and absent being provided with a site plan showing definitive boundaries. I can't fathom how the 7-day appeal period could have even begun. And even so, the assignment of the address is not covered in the code and therefore is not covered by the appeal period. So what I'm asking you to do is instruct staff to provide you with the emails and materials that we forwarded to the city on October 9th for inclusion tonight, the materials that were withheld from you. I'm asking that you then vote to see if the materials warrant further review by the commission.
Mr.
and
Vig,
will abide by your decision on that topic. So, thank you.
thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to speak? I see no one online, so I'll close the public comment period. And we will move on to continued item, planning file 4623. Carolyn is leaving us. And
Okay.
Emery, you have the floor.
Emery Ellingson, Community Development will be presenting item 4623, a variance for 1019 Bennett Garage. And I'm going to bring up a PowerPoint and share my screen. Okay, so this is a continued item from last month. I am going to go through just kind of summarize the application though first. So again, this is a consideration of a variance to allow construction of a garage within the minimum required rear setback of the property. This is the only variance that is required for this project. Planning and Zoning Commissioner Houghton pointed out about the accessory. If it was an accessory structure or not, it isn't attached. So we're just looking at one variance tonight. Property is located in the RM2 residential multifamily limited zoning district, which has a rear setback of 10 feet. And it's surrounded by all residential properties. And so again, action summary to allow applicant to encroach into rear yard setback by constructing an attached garage located 1 foot 4 inches from the property line. Staff had recommended a denial of the variance request with findings and conditions on pages 6 and 7 of the staff report. And again, Planning and Zoning Commission, your actions tonight could be to approve the variance request, deny the variance request, or to, again, continue the item. So again, I'll go through these in depth, kind of the analysis, but there are 7 criteria for a variance and all 7 have to be met for approval. And I'll go through each one individually as it pertains to the application here in a couple of slides. So again, here is the site plan showing the proposed site plan showing the existing duplex with shed in the back of the property and the proposed garage 1 foot 4 inches from the alley. So that's what the site plan looks like. And then this is the proposed elevation. On the right is as it exists. On the left is what the proposed garage would look like. There is, as part of these site plans, a set of stairs that have been included, but those are within the building envelope and aren't subject to this review. And so again, so existing conditions, and this also touches on another question that P&Z raised at the previous meeting. So this house was originally built in 1908, single family home. In 2000, a building permit was approved to make basically a second unit on the upper level to create a duplex. At the time, duplexes were required to have 2 spaces per unit. And so 4 off-street parking spaces were approved on this property. 2 in the rear where the garage would go, and then actually 2 in the front on a driveway that comes off of Bennett. And so at that time, it was meeting all off-street parking requirements. And then these are all approved spaces. And so today, a duplex requires 3 parking spaces, 1.5 per unit. And so the 2 in the front, which were originally approved in 2000, they are non-conforming, but because they're not affected by this, they're allowed to still count towards that total of 3. And then the garage, after engineering had reviewed the turning radius, functionally, this garage can only count as one parking space because of that tight turning radius in the alley. However, with the two that are existing that were previously approved and the one that would result from the garage, this property is meeting all parking requirements for duplex. So again, that's not like the focus of this review. It's still just specifically for the setback. That was a very good question though. Previous meeting. And again, so setback is minimum distance between a lot line and a building or structure. And for this property, it's 10 feet. And so it's the highlighted area. Anything in that area would be considered within the rear setback. And the purpose of a setback, again, is to create a buffer area from roads, alleys to the structure. And again, mitigate problems associated with snow removal, trash pickup, and then also possible any potential utility excavation in the alley. And so that's what the purpose of the rear setback is. And so again, there are 7 criteria that have to be met for the variance. Staff found 4 of the conditions to be met. I'll just go through each one here. And again, if to be approved for staff to find approval, we would have to find all 7 of these be met. So again, first is the subject property has exceptional shape. It does in that it's set farther back from it's set farther back than other structures in the zoning district. A lot of the other structures in the zoning district are actually closer to the front. So that is something that was a little bit different. Number 2, strict application of code standards would produce undue hardship. Staff found that the absence of covered parking does not constitute an undue hardship. It's an inconvenience, but those parking spaces still exist. They're still there. People can still go there. Number 3, the applicant did not create the hardship by their own actions. So the applicant did not construct the original home or was there for the building permit to make the duplex. So they did not create the existing layout of the property, which makes it very hard to put a garage in the rear of the property. Number 4, the variance request does not harm the public and does not impair the intent or purposes of the code. So the variance, again, doesn't harm the public. However, it does impair the intent of the code because of that intent of having that distance in the rear of the property for a setback. Staff found it was not meeting that specific one. Again, the variance request demonstrates exceptional hardship not related to purposes or conveniences or financial burden. So again, it's just it's an inconvenience of uncovered parking, but not an undue hardship. Number 6, the variance request would not violate building or fire code requirements. If this were approved, any construction would require approval of a building permit, which would have to meet all building or fire code requirements. And then number 7, the variance is the minimum variance that would afford relief of the subject standards of the code. Staff found the variance was the minimum variance. And the idea of that is, so for example, code requires access to come from an alley in the downtown core. And so it's meeting that. The proposed garage dimensions are the depth that you would need to place a vehicle. It's just, again, the rear setback. So that it's not that they were requesting multiple variances just simply for the rear setback. But again, there's only 4 of the 7, so staff found recommendation for denial. Reviewing agencies, so again, Public Works, their comments mainly centered on proximity to the structure, to the alley, will complicate snow plowing, trash removal, and utility repair. And they have, if Planning and Zoning Commission were to approve this, one recommended condition is that there be an indemnification agreement, which would indemnify the city from any possible damages to a structure being so close to the alley. Engineering department reviewed, made the comment, pointing out that the tight turning radius makes this effectively one parking space, as I mentioned previously. No public comment was received, either before the September meeting or since, so just no public comment. And then again, the staff recommendation is for denial of the variance application. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Emery. Any questions for Emery? Did I give it?
Do you recall the question we had about the structure being not detached? And so was there any difference in the variance
Yes, so that removed the request for the variance for rear yard coverage. That
Okay.
only applies to accessory structures, which by definition have to be detached. So that's
Okay.
why that was taken out.
So we basically checked one extra box, or not really?
It was just included originally and after further
Okay.
review. Not needed.
Okay, and so if we decided to approve this, we would have to come up with reasoning why those three items.
Correct, so,
Okay.
on the last page of the staff report, and I didn't, I think included in the presentation, but yeah, you'd have an alternate motion to approve finding. Each one property does have an exceptional shape. Just pretty much the opposite of what. The recommendation said,
I guess I'm.
for the three that are,
So did anything change from the last? Comment, I mean, other than we added the 2 spaces in the front, so parking's not an issue.
correct, this is the same application, with, for example, removing the second variance because that was not applicable. And then also staff just looking into the question about parking, that
Okay.
Lindsay had asked. So there's,
Um,
again, needs parking and then the other one doesn't apply. So we're still just looking at the rear setback.
And this question probably doesn't, I mean, I know the answer probably, but, so if the storage shed wasn't there, it still wouldn't matter because it's the encroachment
Correct.
is what it is. So that was, and that's, by the buildings being attached, then that's why that's not an issue.
Correct.
And I guess the one thing, you know, when I look at the things, I mean, hardship is 2 of the 7, you know, it's a hardship thing. And it seems like it's a little subjective, but then it's not. But it is, you know, I mean, when I look at, you know, hardship, it depends on, you know, if you're the applicant or you're us, you know, or the city of how you view that, but it's.
Maybe to add on that is, kind of the way staff looked at it was that an existing parking area exists. You know, so, you know, this lot as it exists has 4 off-street parking spaces and then took the tack that whether it was covered or not was a convenience versus like, okay, there's no place to park a car.
Right, you can still park your car, but it's, yeah, so it's kind of subjective there. That's my questions.
Okay. Amy, please.
I just have one question. I don't know if you know the answer to it, but do you know what utilities are, is that water that goes down
That-
that?
Particular alley, I'm
Yeah.
not sure.
I'm just curious, in case they ever really did need to trench in there.
I would
Sounds to me like,
Water and sewer. Electric. So, electric.
Is it underground or overground?
Well, sewer seems underground.
it's definitely not overhead.
It's all over.
Okay.
Joy, please.
And this is kind of piggybacking on what Pete was asking, but hardship could not be perceived as like slipping hazards to the applicant and safety. Is that,
That was not the way staff evaluated hardship.
okay.
Amy.
Yeah, I mean, I was only looking at that as, because there's a bunch of stairs that they would have to come down, it seems, yeah. I don't know. That-
There's new stairs because it's attached garage.
Oh, oh, right. it's-
And I was
gosh.
thinking more in winter, like walking.
Yeah.
out and,
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yes.
in the code, hardship is defined as a condition by which the property in question cannot be put to reasonable use under existing regulations, subject to a showing of proof under subsection of 7006070A variance.
So code was the word in there.
Well, it refers to the code, but it's saying that the property cannot be put to use. So you're correct that it is generally considered a high standard. And not simply convenience.
Just a minute. Embry, my question is under the lot coverage. Not the rear yard, but
Overall,
overall. And it's my understanding that the existing structure is 1,502 square feet of lot coverage.
correct.
And the way I'm reading this code, it says 25% greater than existing coverage. So that would be 25% of 1,502, which is 350.5. And then, but this building is 561 square feet.
So if the lot is already 30% covered, plus 25 would be 50 of the total lot.
But it says 25% greater than the existing, 25% of the total lot.
Of the total, not,
Well, that is, I think that for future, I think we need to rewrite that because that's really confusing. Because it says 25% greater than existing coverage. The existing coverage is 1,500 square feet, 25% of 1,500.
Also of note, the full code language there is it's either or 50% coverage of the lot or 25% greater than what exists now, whichever is less.
Yeah, so 25% of 1,500 would be the lesser number.
You're gonna make me do math?
but it's,
Well,
Shutting down.
Device for this.
yeah,
With a hardship one.
Very seductive.
Right. I believe, I mean, typically the way this works is it is the percentage that the 1,500 would take of the lot size. So not 25% of the existing footprint, but
well, that's not what it
Expansion.
says though, does it? I mean, 25% of the existing coverage.
so I mean, the current coverage is 30% of the total lot. So plus 25% would be 55% of the total lot. Or 50%, whichever.
That's the way it's interpreted.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Basically
Okay.
caps it at 50.
All right,
I totally get where you're.
I think we need to address the wording there for future. But anyway. Any further questions for staff? And if seeing none, would the applicant like to come forward and would you like to come up? Please state your name for the record.
I'm Ginny West, Virginia West. Thank you for hearing my variance. And I would just hope that you would consider approving my variance based on the criteria under motion to approve. There's up and down the alley, it's almost all non-conforming existing. And the city code does want parking off street. And so those are a couple of things that I'm trying to meet there. The winter time back there is pretty brutal. It just seems like the snow comes up and, just shoveling and having it safe is really, really hard. I think the garage would give me a lot of security and safety as a single person back there. I would sign the indemnity agreement so that if anything happened with the snow or, utilities that the city would not be responsible for that. Yeah, so I think that's what I wanted to say. Thanks you guys for listening. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. I'll now open this item to public comment.
I have a question for Ms. West.
Okay. You want to push your button there? No.
I'll push my button.
Just
There you
don't push
go.
my button.
Sorry. So you heard us kind of talking about the hardship thing. So from your perspective, the hardship is,
Really just about snow and ice in that zone back there. And I think just being exposed just to the elements and to I have an Airbnb next door to me that has a new person in it every night. And you know, that's a security risk for me too. So having the garage, my car in the garage, my things in the garage is really something I'm interested in. Not really worried about them, but you know, it's increased risk for me, not having things covered and locked up. So it's kind of weather and just security in general, I guess.
have you had any issues with the Airbnb, like using your parking space or?
Not taking my parking space, no, but issues, of course, every day. Yeah, so I'm working with the department on that right now because they're probably non-compliant. I'm finding out. Yeah, so I had my bicycle stolen from my yard. It was actually on the back of my car and somebody came and took it off as I was readying to take a trip. So there's people walking down the alley and just looking for opportunities, I think. It's not bad, but it's not totally comfortable either. So being and having my enclosures with all my things and being able to get my garbage cans inside away from the bears would be great because, you know, there's months where they're there every single night. So it's that security as well.
Thank you.
That answer, thank you.
Okay, no further questions for the applicants? Okay, so I will now open to the public comments on this particular item, and seeing none, I'll close that and bring it back to the commission for a motion on planning item 4623, variance for 1019 Bennett garage. Everybody jump in. Well, Amy, you are up first.
Uh-oh. I put my glasses down. I mean, I don't know if we can discuss a little bit more. I mean, I would like to do a motion to approve, but with removal of the existing shed. But I don't know if I'm saying this correctly.
I think you could phrase it as you would move to approve with the findings and conditions on page 8 of the staff report.
Okay.
And an additional condition, which I would recommend discussing with the applicant, removing the shed.
Okay. So yeah, so I would like to do a motion to approve with the findings on page 8, the staff findings as
And conditions.
and conditions. And can I ask her directly? Would she be willing to?
I guess I would add that extra condition and you could withdraw that condition later without, if there's no other objections. So, but including it now would allow everyone to discuss that.
Okay. So, and then prior to the certificate for completion of the garage to enter, well, do all the conditions on page 8, the indemnity agreement, as well as demolish the existing shed. And yeah, conditions 1 through 5. I'm doing a horrible job. I'm hacking this up into a million little bitty pieces.
Right. I'm sorry. I actually didn't realize that demolition was, I forgot that demolition was one of the conditions. So
It is.
that's,
Mhm.
I don't know if it warrants further discussion with the applicant or.
Mhm. Okay.
I guess I would like to just hear
We have to second
about that.
to discuss.
Okay, second, and then we could ask her. Okay.
We are.
Sorry, sorry. That's, I
I'll
was in a
second.
coma, food coma.
We have a motion from Commissioner Connerton and a second from Commissioner Waller. Discussion.
Okay.
I'll say a couple of things. I
Well,
think
your mic's on.
my mic's on. I know it's, yeah, hers is on too, but I mean, I hear Emery's hardships and and I see public works things as well. And I get that, I think that's real, that's legit. I mean, we do have, not that it's a good precedence, and even if you do have them there all the time, doesn't mean you need to keep adding more stuff there, which I think is what staff has said, and I understand that. I do think the hardships of I thought Ms. West did talked at that. Okay, which is different perspective, on the snow and ice and the Airbnb being next door is a hardship to being able to secure it. And then I guess that number 4, so to me, that kind of, if you go with that, you can go with those hardships. Subjective, another little definition of that, but then number 4 is doesn't harm the public, which it doesn't harm the public, but impair the intent and purpose of the code, which was for public works to be able to go up and down through there as well. So then, I mean, that's where Emery presented the indemnification thing that to me kind of gets around there. So that would, I guess, if I look at the 7, that would be how I would look at the 7 if we approve it. And then I guess the one other question I would just have would be for Ms. West would be on the storage unit, because I was thinking that too, but I don't know. I see there's a little chimney thing coming out of there, a stovepipe coming. I don't know what's, she mixes something in there that's illegal, or I don't know what's in there. But oh, wait. The old guy.
Can we
So,
strike that from the
yeah, we can
record?
strike that from the record. But anyway, I guess I would just like to hear from the applicant of that, if a thought on that. That would, I don't know if it's okay for her to come up.
I'm fine with that. Ensuring that the applicant is okay with the conditions is important.
Yes, please.
What is the question to me?
About the shed.
Okay, the shed getting knocked down.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
The little chimney, I don't know what that's about. I think somebody used to have it as a workshop, I think. And that had the burning in there when they were working.
Okay.
Yeah, and then, sorry, Miss West, also just, I think what he was trying to say is you're okay with all of the conditions.
It's 1 through 5. I don't mind those indications.
Oh,
Yeah, the one.
okay,
Yes, I am good with the 1 through 5 conditions of approval.
Yep.
Yes.
and then just to talk to the, she's gonna do an indemnity clause for like public works, et cetera, so I feel comfortable.
So Richard, do we need to list our interpretation of the variance items one by one?
No, I think the findings on page 8 that were included in the motion are
Covers that.
sufficient, and any discussion that Commissioner Waller and anybody else wants to have is helpful.
Okay. Any further comments from the commission? Seeing none, I'll call the vote.
Motion passes unanimously. 6.
Okay, great. Congratulations. And somebody needs to retrieve Carolyn for us, so.
She's locked outside.
Okay, we're fully staffed again, so we'll move on to number 7, new items. Request to continue to the next regular meeting on November 14th, 2023. Planning file 49-23 sign variance for 402 7th Street. Do I hear a motion to do so? Right, where are we? Close. Pete. On. Pete, you have the,
I'll make a motion to continue planning file 49-23. Sign variance.
a motion. No. There you are.
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Commissioner Waller, second by Commissioner Sims. Any comments? Call the question. Okay, moving on to number B, letter B, planning file 5233 preliminary plat, 3381 South Grand Avenue. And I believe Emery, you're up again.
Emory Ellingson Community Development will be presenting planning file 5223. I will be sharing my screen to share a presentation. Okay, so this is an application for a preliminary plat. And the situation, Planning and Zoning Commission is the recommending body. So you'll be making a recommendation and City Council will be making the final decision. So this application is for consideration of a preliminary plat to create 4 separate lots at 3381 South Grand Avenue. And it's in association with the previously submitted administrative site and architectural plan to build 3 new townhomes on the property where there's an existing duplex. So again, creation of 4 separate lots. The property is located at 3381 South Grand Avenue. It's zoned commercial, but the existing use is solely residential. And then the lot size is 19,962 square feet. So again, one action item is just to make the recommendation to City Council for approval of the preliminary plat application. Staff has recommended a recommendation for approval. With findings and conditions on pages 5 and 6 of the staff report. And options for Planning and Zoning Commission are approve the recommendation with conditions, deny the recommendation, or continue the item to the next regularly scheduled meeting. And so just for context, this is the property. You can see the existing duplex would be on the far left, and then the 3 proposed townhomes, those would be their lots. Those boundaries don't represent the exact footprint. That's all the land that would go to it. So for instance, though, on the far right, the building would still be within the building envelope, but the plat property for that specific lot would go to the boundary line. And then again, just more context for what this would look like. So again, just a little background on subdivision procedures. So when someone wants to take a piece of property and make more pieces of property, if it's 3 or fewer lots, that's administrative. And likewise, if it's 10 or fewer condominium units, or if you're condominiumizing an existing building, or you're doing something like a lot consolidation, boundary adjustment, or making corrections of an error on a final plat, that would all be administrative. The reason we're here today is because this application has 4 lots. So because it goes across that threshold, has to come to planning and zoning commission and city council. And so first step, which is what this next page shows, you go through the preliminary plat process. Planning and zoning commission makes a recommendation. It goes to city council for approval of the preliminary plat. The applicant would construct improvements and then come back and have to finish with the final plat, which would show everything all constructed, everything as finished. And that would be reviewed administratively. So this is basically the chance for public input for this process. And kind of on the side is this is what the applicant has been working on with staff at the administrative level for construction approvals. So you can see how they kind of dovetail. And with this instance, everything on the right is administrative, and then on the left, it's planning and zoning commission and then city council. So there are criteria for a preliminary plat approval, or in this case, recommendation for approval. Staff has found that the applicant meets all of these, which is why it has recommended for approval. Basically consistent with comprehensive plan. I'll just go through these one by one. So it's consistent with comprehensive plan. This proposed plat meets several of the goals of the comprehensive plan. 2 will comply with applicable zoning district standards. And a lot of this review has already taken place at an administrative level because staff was reviewing the administrative site plan. So the plat and associated development will comply with zoning district standards, setbacks, will comply with use, dimensional design and development standards in the code. Staff found that it will. Provides a layout of lots, streets, blocks, driveways, and other public facilities intended to minimize the amount of disturbance to sensitive areas and or community assets. So with this property, it is by the river. So all proposed improvements are outside of the riparian setback. And then also it meets, does not involve the subsequent development will not involve any hillside preservation or development in sensitive areas. So it has been laid out with those in mind. Evidence of public water and sewer system connections. So that would be on South Grand Avenue. Identifies and adequately mitigates known hazard areas. So that does include, as shown on the plat, FEMA flood zone. 7 isn't really applicable since this would be all one phase project and existing infrastructure exists. As far as comments, Public Works and Engineering Department has provided comments to the applicant to provide additional details to be added before final plat approval. Some of those things are still being like exact locations worked out as part of the administrative site review. And then River Commission will also be specifically reviewing, there's a fisherman's easement included on this proposed plat. So River Commission will be reviewing that just to provide basically their recommendation, same way that Planning and Zoning Commission would be recommending for approval. And as far as public comment, as part of this process, the applicant was required to hold a pre-application neighborhood meeting before they would even apply. They did that, and the meeting notes and attendance were included in the packet. Besides that, no additional public comment has been received. So again, the action item for Planning and Zoning Commission tonight is to make a recommendation for approval, to recommend approval to the City Council with findings and conditions on pages 5 and 6 of the staff report, and staff had recommended approval. So.
Okay, thanks, Emery. Questions for Emery? This application. Carolyn, please.
Thanks for that, Emery. So from looking at the site plan that you put up, there's 4 building envelopes, but then there's the remainder of the lot. Is that a 5th parcel then? Are they adding 4?
That would be
Lots.
lands in common as part of the whole property, so it'd be condos.
Okay, so it's not technically a parcel or a lot. Like the HOA part of it, right?
Correct.
It could be depicted on the plat as a tract or probably a tract, but yeah, HOA zone property such as that pretty commonly.
But it would be a property that was not included within a lot. Then if the 4 building envelopes were designated as lots, then we have a 5th thing that is not on a lot, right?
There is. just looking at the plat.
I view assessor's records fairly often, and oftentimes you'll see the HOA or the public component having its own parcel ID and description. I was assuming that that's also designated as a lot, but I'm not sure, which is why I'm asking.
Right, they're separately described parcels or tracts. I think probably because this is that preliminary plat, we just don't have that specifically described here, but it's something that could be added as a condition. Imagine.
Or would there essentially be 5 lots now?
Yeah, right, yeah. So,
We're approving 5 lots.
correct, not 4. So same process,
Good call.
different number.
You know me.
Yeah.
And in reading the staff report and all the attachments in the packet, each of those lots is referred to as a unit, and it brought up the question for me that will the duplex be 2 units? Maybe that's more of a question that I should ask the applicant.
Correct, it would continue as 2 units, 1 property.
Whereas it is referred to, we have 4 total units, we would actually have 5.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Matthew, your lights on? Okay, go. Go ahead, please.
Can you explain how the fishermen's easements work? Is it just like a band on the river that people are allowed to come and rest on when they're fishing, or they can utilize as a fishing strip? I can't imagine there'll be like any added access to the river through this project. Correct?
Yeah, so it functions as public access to an area along the river, and it's in this particular case, it's 10 feet in width from the property boundary.
Is it signed? You know, like a lot, I mean, a lot of,
So we have fishermen's easements throughout the city, and they're usually not signed, and it doesn't include necessary access from the road, but more of fishermen that are on the river. But no, not signed.
so, because I'm a fisherman, so that's just from a boat. Then along the river that your access is on the bank, not from the road to the question going down. Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, and I think the idea is to eventually have connectivity from other public access points along the river. So
Sweet.
taking
That's
these
good.
where possible.
You the person, are you a boater?
Yeah, I think a lot of the properties along the river have that, but not all do.
Yeah,
And I
we're
don't know.
slowly gaining more as things develop or redevelop, then we ask for it to be placed.
Right. Okay, would the applicant care to come forward and present to the commission? Please state your name for the record.
I'm Ben West. I don't have anything too important to say. I think it's pretty straightforward. The purpose of the project is to try and do some infill housing on an underdeveloped parcel in a fantastic location. So yeah, I think that having for sale real estate there is a great move for the public. And so that's what we're asking for here. That's what I'm asking for. Be able to build those and resell them.
Joy.
I saw in the community meeting, you had one of the gals asked if the duplex was gonna get a facelift. I presume it is.
I don't know.
Oh, maybe
Maybe,
not.
yeah, I mean, it'll get a paint job at least.
Great.
You know, it'll look consistent with what everything else is gonna be built there.
And then just curious, if the property was to convey to a new owner, does this approval go with the property?
It can or it could not. Yeah, right now, I'm moving along as though I am gonna build this project. but it could be conveyed prior to me doing it. So, and somebody could completely scrap it. Likely, I think someone would pick it up and do the same thing.
But we do allow, I guess this is a question for staff, it does convey, like, the approval would go with the property.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Carolyn.
Hi, Ben. I would like to point out that in, I think is the first HOA type document, you have your declarations. It actually, in 3.10, it says for single family residential. And acknowledging that you do have a duplex, I'm not sure if that this would be in conflict with that. One of those is a duplex if it's 2-family residential. I'm not gonna spend the time scrolling through it, but I highlighted on here, it was 3.10. And perhaps I haven't read a whole lot of HOA guidelines. Would you say that the HOA guidelines that I did read through are pretty standard boilerplate? I'm like, why can't you have patterned linings in your curtains?
It's boilerplate from another similar project.
Okay,
And it would need to be tailored more to the project before it could be accepted, I'm sure.
okay, so
But
this is preliminary.
Basically, yeah, I mean, the purpose of this is to, can we have 4 lot or, 5 parcels as you
And the
pointed
document
out?
provides evidence that it'll be managed appropriately.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
then-
the HOA will need to have governing documents, but. I
Okay,
don't think it's
sounds good, thanks.
dealing with-
So Ben, I think I heard you say this would be for sale project. If you were to develop, these would be for sale units.
Yeah,
But if you sold the whole thing, somebody else could do something different.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, the way that they're being, basically, it's a complete architectural package at this point, and they're 3-bedroom townhome style. I mean, there's one that's actually kind of functions as a single family. It doesn't have any adjoining walls, but they're walk into a main level living. It's got a nice deck on the river, and upstairs has a beautiful deck overlooking the river. And they're not like 700 square foot 2-bedroom units. They're meant to be nice units on the river. So I think that they need to be for sale, really.
Mhm.
I'm sure you guys see that the stuff that's built for rent is not luxury. They're fitting as many units as they possibly can
right.
and building as small of a square footage because it's all a numbers game, right? They gotta.
I have friends in that area and I'm assuming that the parking, as often is an issue there currently.
Right now it's not an issue because there's a duplex and there's a big gravel lot there.
But I know I see vehicles parked, on the other side of where you used to drive onto the bridge.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming that's from that property, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's an industrial property that's right next to it. It doesn't really ever have too many cars to the north. And then there are the 2 kind of townhome developments there, duplex developments. And I can't really speak to their parking situation.
Mhm.
Yeah, the red townhomes that are further down to the south, those, they're those have a lot of, they were built closer to the road. So, a lot of those people are parked in third right away. But
Okay.
I think, the big thing with the development is that you got to fit all the parking on there, have it make sense. So.
Right. Pete,
So this is kind of maybe to both staff and to you, but so what we're being asked to approve is the lots, now the 5 lots. And so if there's, as you come in for building it out, now this is just, allowing it to do what you'd want to do. That then parking and everything else has to be answered at that time. Is that?
Yeah, I mean,
is that right? I'm kind of looking at staff as well, but
Correct, yes, the focus is. The focus of this application is to strictly for subdivision of the land.
Right.
All the construction, all the questions about parking design, that's with the administrative site plan, which is currently being reviewed. So,
and then that's a whole nother process. That's a whole,
even
much more detailed
potentially
process.
with this application, applicant could say, hey, I want to create these lots
Right.
and never do anything ever, but then they exist.
But he has entitlement, so yeah, exactly. Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the applicant? Seeing none, thanks, Ben. Well, I'll open up for public comment. And don't see anybody in attendance, and unless Jim or Matt want to say something, I guess I'll close the public comment period and bring it back up to the commission for a motion on this item. Carolyn,
Chairman, I move to approve planning item 5233. Subdivision.
preliminary plat.
Preliminary plat, sorry, with the findings and conditions on page 5 and 6 of the staff report.
Okay,
I'll second.
and okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Sipley and a second by Commissioner White. Further comments, Pete?
So do we need to, did we already speak about the 5 lots? So we're good with yours how it is?
Yeah, I don't think it actually changes the plat layout itself necessarily, so.
For the comments, seeing none, I'll call the question.
Motion passes unanimously. 7.
Congratulations, good luck. The West score big tonight.
Go west, young man, go west.
Okay, moving on to item C, planning file 5723, location and extent review for 2317 Wulfsohn Road. And
So I'm just gonna hover here in case I need to,
I guess Jim is handling this one. Yeah,
that's right.
Jim, you have the floor from afar. Oh, he's gone. Uh-oh. Oh, there he is.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. And see you as well.
Good. I was just upgraded to a panelist, so this makes it a whole lot easier for me. Thanks very much. Let me share my screen here. And you are live and you can hear me. That's good. All right. All right, can you see my screen that is selected?
Yes.
All right, so you see the presentation for planning file 5623, a location and extent review for the city of Glenwood Springs, the applicant and owner and operator of the land. Thanks for joining us this evening, commissioners, staff, and guests. My name is Jim Hardcastle. I'm a long-range principal planner with the Community Development Department. This evening, we'll be discussing a location and extent application from the Public Works Department for an increase in operational facilities out at 2317 Wulfsohn Road. It's zone light industrial and hillside preservation. The building itself is 1375 square feet as proposed, with surrounding land uses to the north of the Colorado River, the Union Pacific, CDOT, City of Glenwood Springs commercial private operators, Garfield County residential, and public lands into the southeast and west solely or primarily Garfield County and BLM land. The total area is 90 acres, consisting of 3 different sections, A, B, and C. They are all part of the same parcel. but they are separated by the railroad right of way. So technically speaking, 300 feet away from everything outside of the light green was noticed by city staff. And let me just point out that small area. It's grayed right here with the light industrial section, but this area is where the proposed building right here is going to be placed. Potentially parking areas here. This is the operation of the water and wastewater offices here. The idea for this building is to make sure that the increased operations and programming over time that has increased through public works in this area and with staff are better supported by the addition of this office building. So this being in place here will make it a perfect addition to what they have in place to continue doing their job more efficiently. I'll just note out all of the landscaping that has previously been put in place out here from other projects is perfectly suited to supplement and support the building right there as proposed by Public Works. Other existing conditions are noted in the future land use map from the comprehensive plan updated this year. And as you can see, this section, which is part of the third parcel, is a combination of institutional and parks and open space. The other portion over here I didn't show, but that is parks and open space also. This is county land. And this swath of green above here is the third parcel that's separated, the third portion of the parcel that's separated by the Union Pacific right of way. This application has been reviewed as a public and quasi-public special district. The criteria is collected into three basic groups shown in bold here. We need to make sure that the application is consistent with the comprehensive plan goals and policies, the municipal code, and that the proposed use does not negatively impact health, safety, and welfare of the inhabitants of the surrounding areas. Now, number one here, I've got a selection of 4 items. In terms of one of our main city goals on page 35 of the comprehensive plan, we find that this development is going to be cost effective in terms of what it is that it provides for the city citizens, and that it does directly meet this goal. Items 6.2 and 6.9 on within the comprehensive plan. We also find that it does support the idea of allocating land correctly and providing support for appropriate levels of service. And as you saw a moment ago, it does conform to the comprehensive plan future land use map. In terms of the application review of general zoning requirements, staff found that it generally does meet all of the requirements for setback, building height, and other allowed uses. And the allowed use itself it fits within that zoning district. The climatic conditions that are a component of non-residential and mixed-use site and building design are such that the building has been oriented so the buildup of ice and snow is able to melt and make its way off without detrimentally impacting the building. The elevation of the building, the elevations of the building that were submitted show that there is in excess of 30 feet of length. And when that is in place, certain elements need to be applied to the building to break up the impact on surrounding areas. Although with glazed windows and doors and a change in 2.5 feet over a 28-foot run, we find that with its location, it doesn't necessarily impact because there is no integration with the general public. And imply and inputting or placing further review and constraints on this location and extent are not necessary, as there is very little connection with the public. The next item is the roof line. In essence, the length of the building exceeds 50 feet, but for the change of height that they have before the peak of 2.5 feet, it alleviates that constraint. So staff doesn't have any issues there. And then the last item, which I've alluded to twice, is the landscaping requirement that really doesn't come into play here, and staff finds that it would be of little benefit to require the planning or the Public Works Department to put in landscape species where a great number of natural species within this 90-acre parcel, collection of portions of the parcel would not benefit the overall use of the development. There are flowering plants, grasses, and other native species which populate the area, and there's really no necessary need for a dead-end road for a public use with little impact or with little integration with the public to be required to add on within landscaping. And the last item there finds that, or staff has found that the application in terms of a review of health, safety, and welfare would impart no negative impact on the surrounding community, and it would benefit the community through improved service capacity. Colorado Parks and Wildlife was the only agency that responded, and they do not anticipate that there was any further impact or other issues that surround their review based on the existing structures in the area. No comment, no public comment was received either. The action or the item in front of you this evening has alternatives. You can approve with conditions, deny, or continue this application to a future hearing based on your review and findings and discussion this evening. The action item in front of you is for the consideration of the location and extent of a new administrative structure in addition to the existing structures for the wastewater treatment field operations in West Glenwood. Staff does recommend that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the location and extent review application with findings and conditions on page 7 of the report that you received. And the suggested findings, as we discussed earlier, are seen at the top. With this suggested conditions, oh, my screen just locked up. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The suggested conditions, all 5 listed there, indicate that everything discussed in the meeting and all the materials that we have revised are part of the record. Prior to construction, the applicant shall submit a building permit, which they have done, and they're moving forward on it. We have received exterior building color samples, and the proposed colors with this application are in line with the required colors. The applicant shall provide lighting manufacturer information if they intend to put any up, and as I understand, they don't. And any future changes that are required or necessary and proposed by the applicant for the site will need to come back for further review if they are in connection with this approval this evening. Other than that, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Jim. Do we have questions for Jim? Carolyn?
Thanks for the presentation, Jim. One thing that I noticed straight off the bat, and this is in an I-1 light industrial zone. It goes in tight. I looked up the table of allowed uses and wastewater treatment plant is not an allowed use in this zone district.
Yeah, absolutely. Governmental buildings, and those of the like would be allowed in this particular area.
Even though wastewater treatment facilities are specifically excluded. I mean, it's not even a special review. I know you're looking at Hannah and she can't quite see.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm just trying to open up another item here. Let me just stop sharing.
Leave it to me to throw a wrench in the works.
It's not a wrench.
Well, I looked at it and I looked at it again and I was like, wait.
We gotta tear it down.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we have to change the allowed uses in the use table, but we do refer to that pretty often. I'm not sure.
Should be a variance.
Yeah, maybe this should be a variance. I'm not sure how the construction of the plant got approved in the first place.
I guess the response would be that we're not discussing. Sorry, we're not discussing, the commission is not discussing the existing uses on the property, being a wastewater treatment facility. I don't know, perhaps Mr. Langhorst can discuss when that was constructed. Potentially it was constructed prior to the adoption of the current code, which would create a pre-existing non-conforming use. What's under the location and extent application tonight is the construction of I believe an accessory structure that I believe, don't want to put words in the planning director's mouth, but an administrative determination would probably be made that it fits within any existing uses in that zone district.
Right, so there might just be some tying up loose ends and some paperwork involved in the table of allowable uses. But as the building department often refers to accessory structures, they're associated with the primary structure, which of course would be allowed. So I'll leave that one for now. You guys bookmark that. And I do have, unless Matt, were you gonna jump in on that? I see you there.
No, I was just going to say that the plant was final constructed in 2012, but it seems like that's a grander conversation to have.
Yeah, or we can just put a P in the little box on the table, call it good. I did have a question about the assertion that there's over 2 feet in height change across the roof. It is a 1/4 inch per foot pitch. That leaves us 7.5 inches across the 30 feet of the long dimension that is shown here in the elevation. With the 60-foot long building, we're 30 foot to half of it. So that's why the roof looks very, very flat in the elevations that have been provided. And the roof is one of the things that is not conforming. And I'm wondering, is there a disconnect here? Should we be looking at a steeper roof than a 1/4 inch and 12 pitch on the drawing? Because frankly, I think it would look nicer and fit in with other buildings that we tend to approve. So there's a discrepancy with assertion that it's over 2 feet in rise. Whereas it's 7.5 inches.
As I had investigated the plans that were submitted, it had been my general understanding with a review that it had met. If I had read that incorrectly, that would be on me.
Can they make it more than a 2 foot change in roof height? I mean, this is probably a kind of a boilerplate metal building. Is that something that could be achieved as proposed, of more than 2 foot change in roof height? Because it just, right now, it looks like a box. And understand we're trying to save the city some money here, but can something be done?
So the answer to that is this is a modular building. They're all built in conformance to state standards. The roof pitch is, I believe you're correct, 1/4 inch per foot. So it's probably only the 7.5, 8 inches of rise height. We felt that was appropriate in this particular location because every other building on the site is flat.
Uh-huh.
So we wanted a little bit of a pitch so that we get a little bit of drainage on the building itself, but it does have a pretty small roof pitch to it. But it's also to keep the roof height as low as humanly possible so that you can actually visually see this building from many locations within the city. So it matches the buildings that are already out there, being either completely flat or fairly flat. And it is a modular building, so it's being built in conformance with the modular buildings requirements.
Mhm. Okay, well, that makes some sense. One other opportunity that you may have missed here to minimize the non-conformities or non-compliance with our code is what if there was a projection over the set of double doors? You know, we know it snows a lot here, won't snow blow in front of those doors, and that might actually offer a little visual, visual assistance in breaking the building up. And I do wonder, is this going to be visible from anywhere else, across by the old mall or up by Joy's house on Vista, right? Will you be able to see this?
So the answer is you will be able to see it from West Glenwood Springs if you go high enough up on the hill, but the adjacent tracks, if you actually go to the railroad tracks that are adjacent to it, they're 10 to 12 feet above the ground. So the tracks and the trees and the vegetation will actually cover the building fairly significantly. In the wintertime, you may see it a little bit more with the loss of leaves on a few of those trees over there. Once again, it's a modular building. Could we add a projection above the double doors? Probably we could piece something on there, but at the end of the day, it is a prefabricated building that does not want projections because they have to haul it to the city from the Front Range.
Okay. And one last question, aren't we required to provide exterior lighting by doorways?
So yeah, I noticed that Jim had said that. I think he was talking more about general lighting around the building. There's already general lighting within the facility itself. On the exterior doorways, there will be downcast lights, and they will be set on a timer. So they shut off at 10 p.m. and come back on at 6 a.m. So that the whole facility is fenced. We don't have too much security issue out there. More than willing to have them turned off and turned back on at appropriate times. But you are correct. Lighting code does require lights at adjacent or exterior doors.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for staff? Pete?
Yeah, I mean, I like keeping it low visibility. I never see it anyway. And I hike around there but I don't live up high in West Glenwood, so I appreciate that question. So this is presented as adding additional staff, space for staff as you grow and that sort of thing. I mean, that's, maybe there's not enough space now. So what my question was kind of two parts. One was on, so are you at build out now? I mean, let's say that Glenwood gets to, with the mountains and all this stuff surrounding us that we get to full build out. Are you at your build out now, Matt? Or are you?
So to clarify in the staff a little bit, it is for future staff because we do have another staff member potentially coming in and maybe in a further one in the future. But when we lost the MOC, we had to move the entire field operations for water distribution and collection to the wastewater plant. So they've all been packed in there for about 3 going on 4 years now. So we were trying to get a little extra space to move some of them out of the plant, which wasn't really designed to hold that many people. And this has kind of been in the works for a few years at this moment. So it's for it's existing staff and future staff, just so you guys kind of understand. And then when it comes to the plant expansion, the plant is a 2.4 million gallon plant. We're running about 40% of that right now. If things happen in the future and we have to take over other sewer in the area, we would still not be at 100. We wouldn't even be at 75% of the plant capacity. But the build out for the plant, if we needed to add ditches and clarifiers to it, is actually on the other side of the building. We laid that new storage building in that the commission had approved, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago. into a location where we could still add another ditch, another clarifier, and another substructure associated with it and expand the plant by another 50 or 100% if we need to, but it's on the west side of the building.
Yeah.
This area over here doesn't have any expansion associated with the plant.
So, and I guess what my question is kind of is, as you get to full build out, whatever percentage that is, you know, based on how things happen, but from a building perspective, does this kind of take care of your staff for all of that expansion, or would you have to build another building, you know, down the road?
Got your question. I guess that would be TBD. If we needed more staff because the city grew and grew and grew, and we were actually having those conversations in our meetings today in Grand Junction, if it would depend on how large the system grew. Anticipated right now, we would not need any additional buildings, but I don't know what the future holds for we'll call it the district that the city serves.
Yeah, and you have plenty of space. I saw 90 acres that you said, but a lot of that's hillside. I'm guessing that's what the purple line was that went out there that shows all of the hillside stuff, and then you have what you can build on and use. So, okay, that answers my questions.
Okay, thanks. Just as a question, Matt, what's the threshold for when you need to start planning for plant expansion in terms of usage?
According to CDPHE, it's 75%. Once you consistently have 75% of the plant's capacity coming in the doors, you have to start planning for expansion. And then it kicks into other levels of that planning once you hit 80, 85, 90, those kinds of things. But 75.
All right, thank you. Okay. Seeing no further questions for staff, I'll entertain a motion on planning file 5723, location and extent review. Amy.
I'm gonna give it a shot. I move. I'd like a motion to approve location and extent review 56.23, approved with findings and conditions on page 7 of the staff report.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Connerton and a second by Commissioner Sims. I did forget to open it up to public comment, but there's nobody here and nobody online, so hopefully our attorney staff will forgive me for my overload. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay, thank you. And let's see. Moving on to the final new item, planning file 5723, location and extent review for 811 Airport Road. And I believe Watkins is our presenter for this.
Good evening. If you'll give me a second to pull up presentation. It was also 5723. The last one should have been 56.
Math problems too.
Yeah, really.
George is working on the other one. That was his hard one too.
No, it was, yeah. 2 5 times something.
I was confused. I just couldn't go there.
What is Plat?
Yeah, that's.
Okay, if y'all are ready.
Yes.
Last item of the night, I'm going to try to keep it short for y'all. This is another location and extent review for our Public Works Department. Location here, though, is going to be 811 Airport Road. And the location and extent review, as Jim was discussing with you all prior to this item, location and extent reviews are reviews that are specific to governmental or quasi-governmental entities. So the city is the applicant for this one. There are specific criteria of approval for a location and extent, but the purpose of location and extent reviews, which I'll just call L&Es, is to show conformance with a comprehensive plan and to try to communicate a reasonable expectation for development. That's why you'll see some elements of L&Es like this one to not meet the strict standards of the code. And we can go over some of the elements that aren't in strict compliance. So the location here is along Airport Road. It turns out that the airport parcel is a really large parcel. It's almost 62 acres. And so this is on the airport parcel, but it's in the far southern tip of the parcel, the far southern end of the city, where you can see on the map, I think. This specific part of the parcel that we're talking about tonight is kind of colloquially known as the boneyard. And here's a site plan showing the existing improvements and the proposed ones. You'll note that north is on the right of the screen, and Airport Road is what borders it on the west side, which is kind of the top of the boneyard site. So the proposal here is to add 4 new structures and to add a future fueling bay. Also the extension or addition to one existing structure there. So this is a site that's very industrial. When you can drive by it and you'll see that it's got chain link fencing around it. There's a lot of material storage. There's a lot of really kind of metal, say industrial looking structures there. And the proposal here is to add some more of that. It's going to help Public Works in their operations, expanding this facility in addition to the facility they have on Devereaux to meet the city's needs from both ends. You can see here is the elevation of one of the buildings. This is the 5-bay garage shop building as viewed from the east. And you can see a couple of lean-to structures here. This is generally what they're going to look like. They're made of metal. And that's an example picture of what the fueling bay will look like. That's an existing one the city has. So we did get some comments about this project. The fire department has requested the city add a secondary access to this lot. And so that's been included as a condition of approval. I got a number of questions or clarifications about this project. And then I did get some written comments just yesterday, which is why they weren't shared with you in your packet. And I would like to read them or at least summarize them to you. So these comments are from the Jackson Family Ranch, which is across the river in unincorporated Garfield. And their concerns or comments were that light industrial has diminished the value of the open space of the rural areas where this ranch is located. They are concerned about light pollution and the loss of dark skies. And then the comment just that they believe city employees will continue to maintain a neat and organized site. And those are all the comments we received. So moving on to the approval criteria, that these are the same ones that Jim Hardcastle was discussing with you. The first one of the 3 is that the project is consistent with a comprehensive plan and other adopted plans and policies. We think it is. We think it supports one particular goal, which is direct development to locations in form that are cost effective to serve. It also supports a number of comprehensive plan policies. The second approval criteria is that the project is consistent with the general purpose and intent of the code. Here's where I'm going to discuss some of the ways that it's inconsistent. While it does meet the code in some ways, it does not meet the landscape, the setbacks. It does not meet the landscaping. Landscaping requirements, you'll recall this is a 62-acre parcel. And in the I-1 zone, which this is light industrial zone, 20% of the parcel is required by strict standards to be landscaped. So that's like 12 acres of landscaping in which there's not water service to all of it. We think that's not really a reasonable request. Does not meet all the design standards in the code. The design standards require a certain number of kind of architectural features on each elevation. These are really industrial structures and they don't meet them. And then the code would normally require sidewalks be developed along this portion of Airport Road, which the city doesn't believe that's feasible to do at this time. The third criteria of approval is to minimize adverse impacts to the health, safety, welfare, and of the inhabitants of the surrounding areas in the city. And we don't think any adverse impacts are expected with the conditions of approval that are recommended in the packet. So to summarize it, this is an application for 5 structures in addition to an existing structure. Staff's recommending approval of it. And then I have some options for you and a recommended motion. I'm sure you might have some questions before we get to that. So I'm happy to take those, and Mr. Chair, we might want to open up to public comment just for formality's sake too.
Okay. Questions for the applicant, Joy? Staff,
I
rather.
presume that Matt will be regulating the lights, similar to the other project that we just approved from 6 to 10, and then lights will go off. Is that correct?
So in this particular location, the wastewater plant is beautiful because there's one road to it. It's hard to get to. It's less public access, we'll call it. So in this particular location, I do agree with the Jacksons. We've actually probably have too many lights out there right now, and they need to be toned down. And maybe some of them removed. With the addition of this building, we'll do the same thing. We'll tone them down and remove them, and we may even shut 50% of them off at night. But due to the, we'll call it, people who walk around this area trying to get to the impound lot and some other things, we will still have some light over here, but more than happy to work with ComDev and even the Jacksons if we need to come up with a solution that is appropriate for everyone.
And I'll
Do we
note
need
that
to add that to our conditions, or?
there is a condition of
There is,
approval
okay.
about lighting.
Okay,
Yep, that
great. Thank you.
requires
Yep, perfectly fine with that condition.
Perfect.
Amy?
I'm sorry, I didn't turn mine off quick enough. Mine was exactly the same as Joy's. I was just gonna ask, what would it be compared to what it is now as far as light? And you answered that, Matt. Thanks. And I think it would be really important to work with the homeowners there, just to, ensure they feel like they have a voice as to what they would, what you guys can accomplish reasonably.
Pete?
One question I would have on the Jacksons, and I know we've done, you have LED occupancy sensor lights that when people come, they come on, go down. But, and another thought I had, because, I saw that you don't have water there, so doing landscaping, doesn't practically make sense. But a thought I just had is, and I don't know if it makes sense. I agree with you, talk with the Jacksons, but that fence, which it's wicked long, on the riverside, do you put slats or something in it to make it be, it doesn't need to be beautiful because the whole area is boneyardy out there. It's a boneyardy area. But do you do some sort of break where people can't see it so much from 82 or from out that way? I mean, I'm just tossing that out there as something. But the thing I was kind of most concerned about, or was interesting to hear about, you is the fueling bay, which is right there on the bank that goes down to the river. And I'm sure when you build that, there's containment and all that kind of stuff, so that there can't be some catastrophic spill or some sort of thing that happens that goes down to our pristine river, our pristine water supply goes there. So anyway, I don't know if there's any.
So the state regulates fueling bays, especially above ground. We would never underground this one out here because you'd have to have a lot of regulations associated with it. The fueling bays have to have secondary containment for the total volume of the fuel itself. So it would be quite a system out there. It would be a concrete pan, basically, those kinds of things. But the state regulates all of that. So we would not be able just to put a fueling bay in. It would have to go through the state and be approved with secondary containment.
The second, okay, thanks.
Carolyn?
Thanks for that. I am wondering, actually, is there a reason why all of the buildings are loaded right against the street side and not away from the street? I mean, is there a reason the plan is not flip-flopped with the parking and the vehicles along Airport Road and the more massive buildings located farther away from the road?
The answer is yes. We have done some geotechnical investigations out there, and the areas fill, and some of the fill adjacent to the slope is suspect. So we didn't really want to put anything adjacent to the slope other than the fueling bay, which we would pick a very geologically sound location and put that, whether it's exactly where it's shown or shifted one way or the other is slightly more away from the bank. So we were trying to pick the safest location to put the buildings so that we don't have to do driven piles or any of those crazy things or massive over excavations to try to get through some of the coke oven millings that are out there. We've found trash. It must have been like a landfill, makeshift landfill. So we put them in what we thought was the safest locations away from the edge of the slope. And we also thought it made the slope look a little bit better, where it's just not a giant slope and then building. It gave it a little bit of character too. So maybe we overthought that, but it's really the geology of the site that scares us the most.
Are there precedents for the buildings being set so close to the road along Airport Road, or are the buildings typically set back that required 15 or 20 feet? The other, everybody else's buildings, because on this illustration, the site plan we're looking at, all the other development is definitely, it's leaving some room around Airport Road. They're obviously complying with the setbacks. Could we work this out so that the buildings aren't potentially shading Airport Road? I mean, a car could go off there and through the chain link fence and bam, bash up your new building. It seems very, very tight to the road. Are there any opportunities to maybe scooch those back?
So the site itself, if you look at it, is very narrow, and we have a lot of equipment storage and everything else associated with it. So even where the buildings are now, when we slide them back against the fence for the use, because we park along the chain link fence, basically adjacent to the bank there, and some of the items that we park are fairly large. So we've been trying to just hover those buildings back towards Airport Road. They're not very tall. That road sees an extreme amount of sun actually in the wintertime. So we weren't overly worried about it. Plus we plow and maintain that road, even though it is a county road in theory. So we weren't too worried about the maintenance or anybody sliding into it. So we were asking for a little bit of leeway to push the buildings back towards the fence, give us a little bit of space for snow storage as the snow slides off or builds up adjacent to it, but give us as much space against the other side to move equipment and be able to store and park.
And one point of clarification is that the existing buildings that are there are the same setback that's proposed. So the proposed buildings will be in line, the ones that are adjacent to Airport Road.
It says existing buildings to be relocated.
So
And-
those are the ones that are going to be reoriented, kind of flipped,
Right, but
rotated.
don't I see them on the sort of ghosted layer on the site plan here, a bit farther away from? I don't know if you can pull up the site plan, but
Yep, I can. pull
on
this
here,
up.
it looks like they're an appropriate setback from that fence.
No, Commissioner is correct that they are a little farther away from the fence at this point, and we have found that to be slightly problematic.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
What is the setback between the 10,000-foot shop and the fence?
I believe
I
it's.
want to
10
say it's about, go ahead, Watkins.
I think you would know better than I, but 10 feet.
It's about 10 feet, yes.
Okay, I thought you were looking at more like 5, so. Okay, well, thanks for answering those questions.
Here's the site.
It-
plan.
I did have
Well, that's, you still have the floor.
Okay.
If I turn your mic on.
My other question is not specifically to staff, but sort of to the room in general. As we move ahead with Southbridge, this will become one of the primary entrances to town. Are we expecting a lot of longevity out of these buildings as we try to sort of dress up our approach into Glenwood Springs? This is a long range planning question, but is this what we want to see? I know it's a redundant question. I just sort of wanted to bring that point up. this will be one of the major entrances to town if and when Southbridge happens.
Well, I think in terms of what we want to see as an entrance to town, that would be a bigger conversation than we're prepared to have tonight.
It's on the record.
And it's,
Yeah, it was on the record when we did the first approval of this development, when, whatever that was, however many, 8 years ago or something like that. It was discussed then, and we discussed the chain link fence and the slats and decided that one, chain link fences are terribly ugly and not allowed generally, and that the slats are even worse because they come loose and, deteriorate. And so, but talking about putting on the record, I would say that if and at the time that the South Bridge does happen, if it does, that it would be a good time for the city to address this in terms of screening and making improvements so that it is an attractive area entering into our town. So hopefully that will happen at that time, if that time comes. So anyway. Pete,
Well, I guess, because I kind of had that, I was kind of thinking of the same thing, but so where is this in relation to where the South Bridge would be? Because I'm thinking that goes more on Midland. Is this the road that goes into Park East? Where is it?
Kick that one to Matt.
The road at the north end of this property is just off the screen here is the shop building and the hangars on the very south end of the airport. That little driveway actually accesses that you're pointing at right
Okay,
now.
so that's right
accesses.
at the turn, and
Correct.
then you go by there and you have to hit the stop sign for the runway. Okay, I know where you are.
and how the tunnel works and all
Yeah.
that as it comes up is going to be a factor too.
So it's not so much even that side, it's the north side is really what you're, yeah, okay.
And the nice thing about the South Bridge alignment as it exists today is it's slightly lower than this is. So we could potentially screen the north side of this with something nice, wood fence, whatever it is, and you would not actually see it very much.
Right.
So.
Okay, so I don't see any further questions. I will open this discussion up to the public. And there's no one here, and I see no attendees, so we'll close the public comment period and return back to the commission for a motion on planning item 5723. Matthew.
I'll recommend approval of this location and extent review with the findings and conditions that are listed on page 5 of the staff report.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Sims and a second by Commissioner White for approval. Further discussion from the commission? Seeing none, we'll call the question.
Motion passes unanimously, 7.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Watkins.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Okay. Commissioner comments. I'll start with Commissioner Davey. Oops, I gotta close that.
I don't have anything.
Okay.
Nothing from me.
No comment.
Can we have Commissioner question?
Sure.
I would like to know if there are any possible actions that this commission could take based on the public comment we heard for items that were not on the agenda.
As one of the commenters noted, the appeal period for the approval in June ran shortly after after that hearing. And that was months ago. So at this time, the applicant has certain vested rights accruing from when that appeal period ended. And there, once those rights are vested, those are property rights. There is not a mechanism in the code to revisit an approval. So, currently, staff is awaiting submittal of final plans. That's an administrative exercise. We're still working through a couple of items, but we don't really see a mechanism for the planning commission to revisit as you would that decision.
And this might happen in, other instances and in other projects, but if additional information comes in after the decision is made, we just can't weigh that in. Is there, what happens when additional information that may be relevant surfaces after the approval?
In a hypothetical such as that, you could require an applicant to come to make a second application for that approval, but that would be based on basically a determination that the approval is out of compliance with the approval that was made. So
Without seeing the supposed other things that were submitted by someone who I don't know on October 9th, I would have no way to know whether, obviously it's not a decision that we as a commission get to make. It's made higher up. but-
right, and I'd prefer not to speak any further. As you know, a legal threat has been made against the city
Hmm.
on this decision, and so we, as most lawyers would in that situation, we're refraining from really making further public comment.
I understand that at this point, the Planning and Zoning Commission has nothing more to do with this application.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Okay. Going to the other end of the dais.
I have no comment either. Thanks.
Joy is quiet.
What?
I have a couple questions. Kind of like Carolyn. So one is, we're not supposed to do site visits. And I would never do one. But a question would be that, sometimes there are projects. I think the last one we did was the 300 unit one up above for whatever that's called up at the Meadows. Yeah. So I guess one thing I would like to toss out, and it's hard to know, when something's more interesting, worthwhile seeing it on the site, but it seems like unless we speak up, which we don't ever speak up very often before meetings or whatnot, but would be to do site visits. So, and I'm not saying we always put them in, but I think sometimes it's a good thing to do, to just go out there to help us see, to see what's going on versus, seeing everything from the reports, and your staff does a great job of helping us with the locations and all of that, but on something that's maybe a little more, I'll use the word controversial, that's the wrong term, but to be able to do that. So I just like to toss that out. I don't know how we do that, or if that's a standard question each time to see if anything needs to be done or how much lead time we need. But to me, I think when we did it some in the past, it was like right before the meeting for people that would come. And I think Carl went to that one too, because I don't know if it has to be public notice. So then that makes it be more complicated as well. I mean, I understand all of that sort of thing, but anyway, I'm just kind of.
We could certainly take a look at it as it comes up. As you guys remember, anyone who, if you don't go to the site visit, then you can't sit for the item. So there's a scheduling component here that sometimes gets a little tricky. But I understand, previously with the BLD, it can be helpful to visualize what's
Yeah,
happening on
and
that particular.
I mean, it was good
property.
when you do it like right before. I think that one, we all hopped in the van and whomever drove us up there and, you know, if you weren't gonna be there for that meeting or, but anyway, that's just kind of something.
Was that staff that made that decision to visit in that case?
I think it was collective decision and
Between
there was some
applicant
comments
and
made.
staff?
No, not necessarily the applicant, but comments made from commission as well. So if there is one of particular interest that obviously you guys don't know too far in advance, but hearing from you that that is a desire that we could look at possibly trying to do might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of have you have a feel for what.
Not always.
Sure,
though.
but I
It's
could
like
drive out there
hindsight,
myself.
Well, you
maybe
don't.
Hindsight, you do,
Spot
right?
on. I agree. Spot-
Yeah.
You don't always.
It's like we approved a similar project, you know, behind Discount Tires that was far larger and
Right.
more dense and nothing came of that. Nobody had comments on that. So I don't know
Well-
that we can always predict it.
Well,
But
and I guess I'm not saying that yeah, I think that it's good to be boots on the ground.
yeah, I agree.
Sometimes for more and complicated is probably the right word. That is for a more complicated project. So anyway, I
Mhm.
just toss it up where it is. And then this is more of a personal thing, but so I heard a rumor that are there funds available from the city for fire mitigation if you live in an area that you can and do you know anything about that, or is that what the fire department? I live in like a fire area. And I've been doing lots of clearing, so.
I might,
I haven't
s-
actually heard anything from chief, but I could certainly inquire. We are doing crazy things like that
Yeah.
all the time. Like right now, we'll pay you to rip your turf out. Did you know that?
No. I have had some interactions with our new fire marshal, Robin Pitt. He's very agreeable and out of the coke ovens, he was surprised that I had hired someone else to do the vegetation removal that they had suggested, which implies to me that there might be some funds available.
Okay. Yeah, and ripping the turf out. I was thinking of doing that at my house as well with.
What's the pay? Ovens are city.
So that's actually a program through Public Works that's administered by Lynn Springer in our department. And so you can get paid $2 a square foot to remove turf grass. There's some size restrictions, but it's a grant program that we received through the state to reduce outdoor water usage.
Does it have to be irrigated turf?
Yes.
No. Okay, so there might be something though with the fire marshal, so should I probably just follow up with?
If you feel comfortable doing that, you could probably
Yeah.
give him a call or I can do
Yeah,
that for you.
Okay. Thanks. That's all.
Okay, I have nothing. Director's comments.
So we do have a continuation from tonight that will go towards our meeting in November. For new members, our November and December meetings are slightly off in our schedule so that we don't interrupt your holidays. So I believe that is November 14th. Just going to confirm. Yes. November 14th. Right now, that will only be one item, but crazy things can happen between now and then. So who knows? I just wanted to take the opportunity and thank you all who responded to the call-up procedure emails. And if you have any questions about how that procedure works, I'm happy to answer them or have a chat outside of when I send those to you. But it does have a timeline for response and at least 3 of you have to indicate the call-up for that item to come to you. I know I don't follow up and tell you what happened, but this last one did not meet that criteria, so it will be administratively approved per our call-up procedures. Any comments or questions on how that works?
What was the call up?
Hmm.
What was the last call up?
The last call-up was a residential project.
When was that?
I think I responded
You did, thank you.
in and out.
Do you never let us know? Like if it's gonna be called up? Or if there's, or what's the timeline, I guess I should say? Give me the timeline.
So the call-up procedure for you guys, when we receive an administrative site and architectural plan with a certain threshold for units,
Mhm.
when we deem it complete on the staff side, I send you a notice of call-up with some of the basic information on the application, and you have 10 days to respond to me or the planner on the file to indicate that you would like it to be called up.
Mhm.
When that doesn't happen, then that application continues along the administrative process that it is entitled to in our code.
Okay.
I know you guys like to be updated on staffing, and this is a little behind the curve. Danielle Campbell, our economic development specialist, has moved on to bigger and better things. So we wish her well, but you won't be seeing her at City Hall anymore. She has moved to Colorado Springs. So hopefully I will be updating you on a hire at sometime in the future.
She was the facilitator of the comp plan, the last.
Hmm.
I love her.
And that's all I have.
So is the meeting November is the 14th instead of the 28th?
And then December is also equally moved up to the 12th.
I won't be here for that one.
So we do have applications slated for both of those days. If you know you're going to be out of town, I always love an email and I can coordinate with our alternates so that they're here.
I won't be here for December. Do I have to email you?
I'm emailing myself.
Okay, we are adjourned. Carolyn, where are you going?